Good day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Cricket South Africa Level 3 umpiring course hosted by Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. My name is Abdullah Steenkamp, and my co-presenter for this evening is my usual batting partner, Tom Mokorose. The format of today's lecture will be as follows. I'll kick off with law number 12. After that, I'll hand over to Tom, who will then cover laws 14, 18, and 19. And then Tom will take us through some revision questions as well. But to kick off, law number 12, in particular, we're going to focus on the last hour of the match. Firstly, what is this concept of the last hour of the match? And then secondly, we're going to do two subsections. The first one is, what happens if there is an interruption after the last hour has started? And then the second section is, what happens if there is an innings change? A side gets dismissed and now there's an innings change after the last hour has started. So firstly, let's go through this concept in the law of this last hour of a match. And where do you find this last hour of a match? This last hour is only found on the last day of your more-day game. For argument's sake, let's say if it's a 5-day test match, last hour found to be found on day number 5. If it's a 4-day match, day number 4 you'll find the last hour. 3-day match, day number 3, that's where you will find your last hour. If we can go back many years and just to get an understanding why this concept of the last hour was introduced into the laws. So many years ago, what teams used to do is, and I'll use, let's say, the fielding side as an example. So let's use a test match, day number 5, with the closing time being 5 o'clock. We'll get to close to 5 o'clock. Let's say we get to about 4 o'clock with the batting side needing, let's say, 60 to win. And there's bad light and rain around. So the fielding side will then deliberately start slowing the game down. They'll try to bowl as little overs possible in the remaining time leading up to 5 o'clock. So then what the lawmakers decided was, we need to do something about this. This is not fair, but we need to do something that's fair for both the fielding side as well as the batting side. So what did they do? They decided to bring this concept into the laws of the last hour of the match. And it is when there's 1 hour of playing time remaining, like in our test match. Play starts every day on 10 o'clock and ends at 5 o'clock. So on day 5, will you find your last hour? So the last hour will be from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock on day number 5. So now what the lawmakers decided to do was, and to be fair to both sides, so when we get to 1 hour of playing time remaining, they now want a minimum of 20 overs to be bowled in the last hour. So when we get to 4 o'clock, so from 4 to 5, they want a minimum of 20 overs to be bowled. So yes, you can bowl more overs if you have 2 spinners bowling, but at least they want a minimum of 20 to be bowled. So if our last hour starts at 4 and we know we need to bowl 20 overs and we get to 5 o'clock and the fielding side did not bowl the 20 overs yet, player needs to continue until they bowl the 20 overs. I'll go through a few examples just to illustrate exactly how this works. And I'm going to use test match playing times as an example. So in test matches, we know that it spans over 5 days, starting at 10, ending at 5, and we play 90 overs. Day 2, similar playing times, same overs. Day 3, day 4, and day 5, starting at 10, ending at 5. So the last hour is only on day 5, and it will be from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And we know that a minimum of 20 overs needs to be bowled in the last hour. And again, I want to emphasize that we are, for the purpose of this particular course, we're covering the laws of cricket. And I know there are some playing conditions for different competitions across the world where this might slightly differ. But for the purpose of this course, the law tells us that in the last hour, minimum of 20 needs to be bowled. So practically what happens? So when we get to 4 o'clock in our test match on day number 5, the bowlers and umpire will then inform everyone that the last hour is now starting. And how will the bowlers in do that? By pointing to a raised wrist with the other hand and then signaling it to the scorers. We also practically verbally say it. So yes, I'm indicating with my hand, verbally showing to my raised wrist, but I also just verbally utter it. Uh, uh, Players, last hour is now starting. So now the fielding side needs to bowl a minimum of 20 overs in this last hour. So from 4 to 5, the law wants at least 20 overs to be bowled. So what happens in the scenario where we start at 4 o'clock and we get to 5 o'clock and only 16 overs was bowled by the fielding side? So now play needs to continue until we've completed 20 overs. So again, this was brought in to be fair to both sides. The law wants at least 20 overs to be bowled. So if the fielding side is dragging their heels a bit and try to bowl only 16 in that last hour, no. Even if we get to 5 o'clock and we've only bowled 16, play will continue. We need to bowl a further 4 more overs. In the event where the overhead is quick, let's say 2 spinners bowling in the last hour, and we start our last hour at 1600 hours, and we get to 1648, and now we've bowled 20 overs. Do we stop playing? No, we don't, because the law tells us we need to bowl a minimum of 20 in that last hour. So yes, the overhead was quick in this example, so we need to continue playing until 5 o'clock. We cannot finish earlier than our scheduled close of play time, which in this example is 5 o'clock. So yes, minimum of 20 to be bowled. Fielding side can bowl more. They can bowl 30 in that last hour if they want to, 40 even. But as long as a minimum of 40 is bowled, of a minimum of 20 is bowled. So now we've covered the last hour, what it is, why this concept was brought in. So now next I'm going to focus on 2 subsections. The first one is what happens if after our last hour has started, there's now an interruption, like perhaps rain, like bad light or lightning, any type of interruption. So we're first going to cover what happens if there is an interruption after the last hour has started. And then after that, we're going to get to cover what happens if there is an innings change after the last hour has started. But let's first look at an interruption after the last hour has started. So now 4 o'clock, our last hour has started. And now there is an interruption. How will we handle it? Must we still bowl 20 overs in that last hour, even though we maybe lost 20 minutes due to rain or bad light? Or must we reduce? What must we do? The law guides us. The law tells us that yes, we need to reduce. And how do we reduce from the 20 that we started when the last hour started at 4 o'clock? Two steps that needs to be followed. The first step is you need to calculate the length of the interruption. Let's use rain as an example. How long did it rain? So from the moment that you left the field up until when the umpires decided for play to restart. So that you need to calculate in minutes as the first step. And let me show you an example. Let's say our last hour starts at 4 o'clock and we know 20 overs needs to be bowled. We get to 6 minutes past 4. After 2 overs were bowled, it starts to rain and players needs to leave the field. Umpires decide that play can restart at 16:25. So how do we calculate how many overs we lost? We'll get there. We first need to calculate the time of the interruption. How long did it rain for in our example? So the time we lost was it started raining at 6 minutes past 4 when we left the field, and umpires decided that play could resume at 16:25. So that equates to 19 minutes. So that's the first step that we need to do when it comes to if there is an interruption after the last hour has started. We first need to calculate how long this interruption was. And in this example, 19 minutes. That's the first step. The next step, 1 over to be deducted for every completed 3 minutes of time lost. So 1 over for every completed, emphasis on completed 3 minutes of time lost. So let's use our example again. So from on previous slide, we calculated that we lost 19 minutes. So we need to now convert this 19 minutes into overs. Now the law guides us by telling us 1 over to be deducted for every completed 3 minutes lost. So what I do is, to calculate my overs lost, I take my 19 minutes that we lost and I divided it by 3 and I get 6.33. So we will ignore the fraction because the law tells us only if for every completed 3 minutes lost. So how many overs did we lose? We lost 6 overs in total due to the rain interruption. And then the final step that we need to do is we now need to calculate how many overs remaining in my last hour. So the formula is when my last hour started, it was 20 I had to bowl in the last hour. Then I've just calculated that we lost 6 overs due to rain. And if we go to the question, if I go back to my previous slide, you can see that 2 overs was already bowled. It's only started raining at 6 minutes past 4 with play started at 4 o'clock. So for that 6 minutes, 2 overs were bowled. So that's why in my formula, I also need to subtract the overs that was bowled. So I'm left with 12 overs minimum to be bowled when play resumes at 16:25. So again, just to summarize, when there is a interruption in the last hour, only 2 steps needs to be made. Calculate the length of the interruption. That's your first step. In minutes, take that minutes, you then divide it by 3. You will ignore fractions. And like in this example, 6 overs was lost. And you then follow the formula to calculate your overs left, overs that you started with your last hour, less the overs lost due to rain, less the overs bowled. What happens if it rains more than once in the last hour? So last hour starts at 4, you play a bit, it starts to rain, then you calculate the overs left, you restart, then after playing a bit, it rains again, and then again. Let's say there's like 3 or 4 interruptions in the last hour. Lord tell us, please do not add up all these interruptions in one equation. Please do them separately. That first interruption, you need to calculate, taking into account the length of the interruption, how many overs left. Then play restarts, then it rains again. Now you do a separate calculation based on now the new time that was lost and where you left off. So the point I'm trying to make is, doesn't matter how many interruptions in the last hour, please do them separately. So let's look at an example where there is more than one interruption in the last hour, and how are we going to deal with it. So again, in this example, last hour starting at 4, and we know 20 overs needs to be bowled. At 16:09, after 2 overs, now it starts to rain and players leaves the field. Umpires then decide that play can restart at 16:20. Then after play restarting and playing for a further 9 minutes, while 3 overs were bowled, it starts to rain again. And then umpires decide at 16:43 play to restart. Now we need to calculate how many overs left in the last hour. The point above tells us if there's more than one interruption in the last hour, we will not add everything together. So we won't look at this question in totality, and then calculate, look at, let's say, the first interruption was started at 16:09, play resumed at 16:20, so that's 11 minutes. Then it started raining again 16:29 to 16:43. That's another 14 minutes. 11 plus 14 is 25. No, that's not the correct way to do it. The law wants us to do them separately. So we'll look at the first interruption first, and then we will do the second interruption. So let's look at the first interruption. So how much time did we was lost due to rain? It started at 16:09. Umpires decided at 16:20 play to resume. So this equates to 11 minutes. So what do we do with this 11 minutes? We need to convert this 11 minutes to overs. And we divide the 11 by 3, and we get 3.66. And we know we only take the completed overs. We will ignore the fraction. So only 3 overs lost. Then we apply our formula, which is when the last hour started at 4, we had 20 overs. Then we lost 3 due to rain. And then we also need to subtract the overs that was bowled. So now we're left with 15 overs minimum. So when play restarts at 16:20, as we walk onto the field, we will inform the captains, or before we take field, we'll inform both captains that we lost 3 overs. Yes, we've bowled 2. So now we're left with 15 overs minimum when we restart at 16:20. So everyone is informed. Then let's go back to the question to see what happens. Then play restarted at 16:20. And then we played for 9 minutes while 3 overs was bowled. Then it rained again at 16:29, and umpires decided play can restart at 16:43. So now, in our second interruption, again, that's why we do it separate. We first do our first interruption, calculate the amount of overs left, 15 in this case. Now, in our second interruption, we follow the same steps. How much time was lost due to rain? From 16:29 till 16:43. This equates to 14 minutes. What do we need to do with the 14 minutes? We need to convert the 14 into overs by dividing it by 3. We get to 4.66, but we'll ignore the fraction because we'll only must take for every completed 3 minutes. So 4 overs lost in this rain interruption. Now the last step is we need to calculate the amount of overs left in our last hour. But now importantly, when the overs that we need to start with is not 20 anymore like we did in our first interruption. We now need to start where we left off after our first interruption. So when play resumed after our first interruption at 16:20, we had 15 overs left in the last hour. So this is now, when calculating how many overs left, you need to start with this 15 and not the 20 in your first calculation when you did your first interruption. So 15, and this was the overs that was left after my first interruption. Less the overs lost due to rain, and less the overs bowled. So I'm now left with, when play restarts at 16:43, a minimum of 8 overs still needs to be bowled after the last hour. So again, if there was another interruption in the last in this particular last hour, you'll now have a third interruption, and you'll do it exactly the same. And all you just need to remember is you now need to, in your third interruption, you now need to start where you left off at the end of your second interruption. So you had 8 overs left, and that should be your starting point when doing the final equation. So let's move on to the second subsection under the last hour. And this deals with what happens if a side gets dismissed and there's now an innings change after the last hour has started. The law guides us by telling us we need to do the following. If there is an innings change after the last hour has started, 2 calculations needs to be made. You'll do a calculation, you'll do your first calculation, you'll get an answer. You then need to do your second calculation and you'll get an answer. Then we will compare the 2 answers, and the greater of the numbers of the 2 calculations, that will be your minimum number of overs to be bowled in now, let's say, the final innings of this particular match. So to summarize again, if an innings ends after the last hour started, 2 calcs to be made. The greater of the numbers, or the greater of the 2 answers of your 2 calcs, that will be the minimum number of overs. Okay, so now we know exactly what needs to be done. So what are those 2 calculations that needs to be made? There are the first of those calculations is a calculation that is based on overs remaining. And there are 3 steps that needs to be followed. And we'll go through the 3 steps. We'll then go have a look at our second calculation. There are also 3 steps there. And then we compare the 2 answers and take the greater of the 2. So just bear with me. For now, let's go through the theory and see how the law works and how the theory works. I do have an example. We will then go through an example and then see how we practically apply the theory. So let's start with our first of our calculations, which is a calc based on overs remaining. So what is the first step? First step is, when the innings ended, please calculate the amount of overs remaining in the last hour to the ball. No rounding up here, no nothing at this stage. We need to calculate the amount of overs left in the last hour to the ball. That's your first step in your overs based calc. Your second step, you've now calculated an answer in bullet point 1 and you've wrote it down. Looking at your answer in bullet point 1, if that answer is not a whole number. So if you do have a fraction, let's say 5.2, 11.6, 9.4, if it is not a whole number, you need to round up to your next whole number. So 5.2, next whole number will be 6. 11.6, next whole number will be 12. 8.1, next whole number will be 9. So you need to round whatever your answer that you calculate in bullet point 1 needs to be rounded up to the next whole number. And the last step, 3 overs to be deducted from your answer in bullet point number 2. Why this 3 overs? This 3 overs is for the change of innings interval. Change of innings interval is 10 minutes, and for that 10 minutes, the law wants us to deduct 3 overs. So when it comes to our overs remaining calculation, 3 steps needs to be done, and we need to write down the answer. Then our second calculation was a calculation based on time remaining. Also 3 steps in this calc. The first step is, when the innings ended, write down the time remaining in your last hour. When innings ended. That's the first step. Second step, take your answer in bullet point 1 and subtract 10 minutes from it. Why 10 minutes? This 10 minutes is for the change of innings interval. And your last step, you now need to do a calculation, and the law tells us 1 over for every completed 3 minutes of playing time remaining. And then if there is a fraction, you will add another over. Again, just bear with me. We're going through the theory. Once we do an actual example, you will see how practically we apply the theory. But just to summarize again, when there is an innings change after the last hour has started, we need to do 2 calculations, compare the 2 answers. The greater of the 2 answers, that will be our minimum number of overs left in the last hour. The 2 calculations that we need to make is, there's a calculation based on overs remaining, and there are 3 steps that we need to follow, and we get an answer. There's a calculation based on time remaining. There are 3 steps that we need to follow, and we'll get an answer. We then compare the 2 answers, and the greater of the 2, that will be the minimum number of overs left in the last hour. Now let's look at an example and see how we practically apply the theory. Our last hour starts at 4 o'clock. At 19 minutes past 4, after 5.2 overs are bowled, Team A gets dismissed. Now the captains wants to know how many overs are left in the last hour. So now we know that the law wants 2 calcs to be made. And then the greater of the 2 answers, that will be your minimum number of overs left in the last hour. So our first calculation is a calculation based on overs remaining. So let's again have a look at what are those 3 steps. When the innings ended, please calculate the amount of overs left in the last hour to the ball. At this stage, don't round up, nothing. 5.2 overs was bowled. We started with 20. We need to calculate to the very ball how many overs left. So that was our first step. Our second step is look at your answer in bullet point 1. If it's not a whole number, round up to the next whole number. And then lastly, deduct 3 overs for the change of innings. So that's the theory. Let's apply it to our example. So we know our last hour that started at 5 goes till 4, started at 4 goes till 5. And we know 20 overs needs to be bowled in our last hour. So when the innings ended, we need to calculate the overs remaining in the last hour to the ball. So we know we started with 20, and they've bowled 5.2. So if I take off 5.2 from 20, I'm left with 14.4 overs left. And this is what I meant, calculated to the ball. Don't round 5.2 up to 6, no. We need to follow what the law tells us. The law tells us when in our overs remaining calc, when you do your first step, calculate the amount of overs left to the ball, and in this example, 14.4. Our next step was, if my answer is not a whole number, I need to round up to the next whole number. So 14.4 is not a whole number, so I need to round it up to the next whole number, which is 15. And then the last step, I need to take my 15 and deduct 3 overs for that 10-minute change of innings. And I'm left with 12 overs minimum. So now I know for my overs base calc, 12 overs minimum is the answer. So now I need to do my second calculation, which is a time remaining calc. Also 3 steps here. Let's go through the theory and then we'll apply the theory to our example. When the innings ended, from that moment that 10th wicket fell, that's when the innings ended. From that time, we need to see how much time remains in the last hour, and we write it down. We take our answer in bullet point 1 and we deduct 10 minutes. And why? That 10 minutes is for this now a change of innings interval. And then we need to do a calculation. When we take our answer in bullet point 2, and for every completed 3 minutes of playing time remaining, we'll take it. Plus, if there is a fraction, we will add another over. So that's the theory. Let's see how practically this works. And if we just want us to go back to our example. So with the last hour starting at 4, at 19 minutes past 4, that 10th wicket fell. So that's going to be important. So our last hour started at 4 and we know it goes till 5. So last hour started 4 till 5. Innings ended at 19 minutes past 4. So from that moment, how much time is left in the last hour? So if my last hour is supposed to end at 5 and the innings ended at 19 minutes past 4, that is 41 minutes left in my last hour. That's the first bullet point. Second bullet point, deduct 10 minutes for the change of innings. And now I'm left with 31 minutes. And now I need to do my last bullet point, which is take my 31, I divide it by 3. My answer is 10.33. So, and because there's a fraction, I need to add another over. So what I'll do is 10 overs plus another 1 over for the fraction, which gives me 11 overs. So my time remaining calculation is 11 overs. So in the final step that we need to do is, the law tells us, use the greater of the two answers. And which is the greater of the two? In my overs remaining calc, we had 12 overs, and in my time remaining calc, there was 11 overs. So obviously 12 is the greater of the two. That's why we will tell the captains that, captains, there are 12 overs remaining in the last hour. Tom, thank you so much. I know this is very technical. I'm now handing over to you.
I'm taking us through laws 14, 18, and 19. So law 14 is the follow-on. And what firstly is the definition of a follow-on? I don't think we've had one recently in test matches around the world this year. So I'll just go to an example in my head where, say, South Africa bat first against Zimbabwe and they score 600 runs, and Zimbabwe in their first innings score only 250 runs. They will be at a deficit after each team has batted once of 350 runs. So 600 minus 250 is 350. And then because of such a good lead in the first innings, South Africa would have the option to force Zimbabwe to bat for a second time immediately after their first innings into their second innings. That, for those of you who don't know, is the definition of a follow-on innings. So what is that lead that is required for a team to be able to enforce a follow-on after each team has batted once? Law tells us that in a 2 innings match of 5 days or more, the side which bats first and leads by at least 200 runs shall have the option of requiring the other side to follow their innings. So this is an example of a test match, which we know lasts 5 days. That minimum lead is 200 runs required. What about other matches which are less than 5 days? Women's test matches around the world are 4 days. England played against Zimbabwe in late May this year, and that was a 4-day test match. So would the minimum lead required be 200 runs in a 4-day match? No. Law tells us that in a 3 or a 4-day match, the minimum lead required on first innings is 150 runs. In Western Province Cricket Association club cricket, we used to play 2-day cricket, and there the minimum lead was, according to law, 100 runs required to be able to enforce the follow-on. We do also have a unlimited overs 1-day match. It is a very rare format that is not widely played around the world. Cricket South Africa used to play this format in their age group provincial tournaments when I was still coming up through the pipeline. Boys under 13, boys under 15, boys under 17, and boys under 19 provincial weeks would have 1-day more day cricket or 1-day unlimited overs cricket, and or what they called time cricket. I think that's a better phrase. There, the lead required in the first innings is 75 runs to be able to ask the opposition to bat again in the second innings. If no play takes place on the first day of a match of more than 1 day's duration, this is very important. Law 14.1 tells us that we will now have to adjust that lead required. Okay, so if, for example, no play takes place in a 5-day test match on day 1, the umpires at no stage call play because there's persistent rain throughout the day, then law tells us that that will become a 4-day game in terms of the lead required to enforce the follow-on. So instead of 200 runs, then the lead required to enforce the follow-on in that test match, because we have lost the entire first day to rain, the lead required there would now not be 200 runs, it would now be 150 runs. So please note this is only if the first day's play is lost. If the second day's play or the third or the fourth or the fifth day's play is lost entirely due to ground weather or light issues, we do not change the follow-on target. It is only if the first day's play of a more-day cricket match is lost in its entirety that the adjustment will occur to the follow-on target. We must remember that if the captain of the team which has the lead required to enforce the follow-on chooses to take that option, they shall notify the opposing captain and the umpires of their intention to take up the option. And once they have notified the umpires and the opposing captain, that decision cannot be changed. So that's what we need to know about follow-on, and especially the first day's play lost. There will be a revision question later about this, so please keep this information in the back of your minds. Next law that I'll be covering this evening is Law 18, scoring runs. Firstly, we need to define what is a run. Law tells us that the score of cricket shall be reckoned or counted by runs. And when is a run scored? There are three conditions when and how runs are scored. First one, so often as the batters at any time while the ball is in play have crossed and made good their ground from end to end, that will count as a run. The next law that I'll be covering is the boundaries law. So when a boundary is scored, of course, runs are scored. And throughout level 3, we will be referring quite often to penalty runs. And that is the third and final way that runs are awarded to either side. Sometimes batters don't complete a run and we have short runs. By definition, a run is short if a batter fails to make good his or her ground in turning for a further run. So you cannot have a short run when only one run is attempted and completed. A short run occurs when batters are turning for a second or a third or a fourth or a fifth run, and they don't make good their ground at the opposite end. Law goes on to tell us that although a short run shortens the succeeding run, the latter, if completed, shall not be regarded as short. So only the run that was short when the turn occurred, the run that was attempted to be completed when the either batter turned short, that run is short. The subsequent run, if completed, will count. Also, we have the likes of David Miller and other batters around the world who like to bat far from outside their crease. Law tells us that a striker setting off for the first run from in front of the popping crease may do so without penalty. That means that David Miller, standing half a meter outside of his popping crease, when he hits a shot through the covers, he does not need to go back into his popping crease before taking off for his first run. So a striker is allowed to run from the position that he or she hits the first ball and runs. So there are two types of short runs: unintentional short runs and deliberate short runs. We are first going to look at unintentional short runs and how us as umpires need to treat unintentional short runs. Law tells us that if either batter runs short, the umpire whose end the short run has occurred shall call and signal short run when the ball becomes dead, and that run shall not be scored. So all the other runs which were completed will be scored, just the run where either batter turned short will not count. If after either or both batters run short, a boundary is scored, the umpire concerned shall disregard the short running and shall not call or signal short run. Because we will learn in the next law that whenever the ball crosses the boundary, whether it's along the ground or over the fence, the runs scored will be the higher of the boundary allowance or the runs that have been run. If both batters run short for the same run, it shall only be regarded as one short run. So if for whatever reason, very coincidentally, the two batters run short at the first turn, turning for the second run, then only the first run will be short, the second run will be complete, and so the second run would count. If more than one run is short, say for example, the batters attempt 3 runs and the first 2 were short, only the third run was completed, all runs called as short shall not be scored. So we all know the signal for short run. You can signal it with either hand going to its corresponding shoulder. But how would we then communicate to the scorers that there was more than one run short? And how would we let them know that only one run was completed out of the 3 that were attempted? So I think firstly, good umpiring practice, when you as a bowler's end or a striker's end umpire see a short run occur, while the ball is still alive and as the batters are still running to complete the subsequent run, call and signal dead ball for everyone on the field to know that, call and signal short run for everyone on the field to know that a short run has occurred. Why? Because firstly, mid on and mid off, and sometimes the bowler often watch for the striker who has ran to the non-striker's end. They often watch that batter turn, and the wicket keeper will often watch the non-striker turn at the striker's end. So if any fielder sees a batter running short, they are going to shout and scream, short run, short run, short run. So to avoid all of that shouting and screaming, it's good umpiring practice for whichever umpire saw a short run at his or her end to call and signal short run while the ball is still in play, just so that all the players are aware that there has been a short run and you did see it. I can guarantee you, once a short run has been called during play, while the batters are still running, they will be extra careful to make sure that they don't run short again on that same delivery. So I have never had, and I have never seen more than one short run on one delivery, because that is the process that most umpires around the world implement when a run is short. But if you do have a scenario where 3 runs were attempted, only one was completed, then you do need to either get on your walkie-talkie to inform the scorers that only 1 run has been scored out of the 3 attempted, or if you don't have any means of radio communication to the scorers, then you need to, at the earliest practical moment, go and communicate that over number 18.2, only 1 run was completed, even though 3 were attempted. Okay, so save yourself all of that trouble by calling and signaling short run immediately as a run is short. And I can guarantee you the batters at the crease won't run short again, at least in that particular delivery. So we've covered unintentional short runs. The second category of short runs is deliberate short runs. This video is going to take us through unintentional as well as deliberate short runs. And then I will talk through deliberate short running after the video. Abdullah, please let me know if you cannot hear the sound on the video, but I'm sure it should come through.
Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This video is a new addition to the analysis series. Let's get started. On 15th of November 2018, second day of second test match between Sri Lanka and England, a strange incident happened. Let's watch the footage. Looks like a normal short run case, isn't it? Well, that's not the case. Let's see what umpire's decision was. You did not understand what he signaled. He initially disallowed all the runs scored by the batsman on that delivery. Further, he informed the batsman about deliberate short running and awarded 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see what the cricket law has to say about running short. There are 2 categories in this: unintentional and deliberate. Let's take a look at unintentional short running first. If a batsman runs short, then the umpire shall call and signal short run as soon as the ball becomes dead, and that run shall not be scored. For example, if they run 2 and if they run 1 short, then only 1 run will be scored. Now, let's take a look at deliberate short run. Cricket law states that if either umpire considers that one or both the batsmen deliberately ran short, then wait for the ball to become dead and further disallow all the runs scored on that delivery, return the batsmen to their original end, and award 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see why the umpire considered this incident as deliberate short running. As you can see, both the batsmen start running and then striker Roshan Silva feels that the ball will reach the boundary. But upon seeing Moeen Ali has stopped the ball, he runs back to the striker's end. But in between, the striker Roshan Silva did not ground the bat at all, which made the umpire to consider this as deliberate short run. If
Apologies for that. Carry on playing.
If he had at least tried to ground the bat, then most likely that the umpire would not have considered this as a deliberate short run. 5-run penalty for this feels a bit harsh, isn't it? Now let's see why exactly this law exists. In an IPL match between Mumbai Indians and Kings 11, while chasing 231, Mumbai Indians needed 16 runs of the last over. Kieron Pollard, who faces the first ball of the over, strikes the ball and sets off for the run, thinking that he can come back for 2. But upon realizing that he cannot make it, he runs back to the striker's end without completing the first run. And it can be seen that he did that deliberately as he wanted to get back the strike. It is clearly unfair as he got 1 run and also he came back to the strike. To prevent the players from doing such things, this law exists. But in Roshan Silva's case, he was not trying to gain any unfair advantage. But since he did not make any effort to complete the first run, it was ruled deliberate short run. Still have any doubts with this? Do let me know in the comment section. If you like the video, then hit the like button and share with all your friends. If you have not subscribed yet, then don't forget to subscribe for more such contents.
Right. We have seen and listened to the definition of a unintentional short run, and we have compared it to a deliberate short run. Here we have a Big Bash League scenario from a couple of years ago. Tim David is the batter on strike. He is 18 off 9 balls, and he's batting with the number 8, who has yet to face a delivery. It is the last over of the first innings of a T20 match, so we are ball number 19.5 about to be bowled. I need you to decide. This is your first quiz question for the evening. Is this a unintentional short run or is it a deliberate short run? So please type into the chat box. Quiz question 18, because we're dealing with law 18.1. And you need to tell me how many runs will be awarded to the batting side, if any, and how many runs will be awarded to the fielding side, if any. Okay, so remember, if it is an unintentional short run, then we merely do not award the run that was short. But if it's a deliberate short run, then there's a whole lot of punishment that is involved. So let's have a look at the scenario, and afterwards you can type your answer into the chat box, please.
Oh, hey, it's pretty well positioned throw, wasn't it? Nice work, actually.
I think they're talking about the non-striker perhaps leaving the box, leaving the crease a little bit prematurely, I believe. There you go. Right, yeah. So, Maxie,
What do you did run him out?
it's for a deliberate running short. So Tim David's run down, knew he just had to touch about a metre out of the crease to be able to get back and face the last delivery.
Right. Q 18.1. Batting team, how many runs? Bowling team, how many runs? Okay, please type into the chat box now. Q 18.1. Batting 0 or batting 1. Q 18.1. Bowling 0 or bowling 5? Okay, we'll talk through the answer towards the end of the lecture. If you believe that one or both batters has deliberately ran short, umpire concerned shall, when the ball is dead, call and signal short run. You still need to call and signal short run and inform the other umpire what has occurred. And furthermore, the bowler's end umpire shall disallow all runs to the batting side. That is maybe key to your answer. Return any not out batter to his or her original end. Signal no ball or wide to the scorers if applicable. And award 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Here, because it is considered an act of cheating, we need to inform everybody and also report the incident. Before I move over to the next slide, I just want to refer quickly to the new ICC laws that have come into play in the month of June for Test match cricket and effective July for limited overs cricket in men's international matches. If there is deliberate short running that is seen by either umpire, all of this that I have just read will apply, except for point number 2, what the bowler's end umpire shall do. The bowler's end umpire shall not necessarily return the not out batter or batters to their original ends. The fielding side will now get to choose who faces the next delivery if there is a deliberate short run by the batting side. Okay, that is a new International Cricket Council playing condition that is effective June 2025 for Test match cricket, men's Test match cricket, and July 2025 for men's one-day internationals and men's T20 internationals. So it is not yet written into the laws of cricket, and that will not be your answer for the level 3 Cricket South Africa exam. I am just informing you so that when you see it on television, when it does happen, you will wonder why the fielding side is choosing who faces the next delivery. It is because it's a new ICC playing condition. But for purposes of this exam and this course, that is why I haven't changed this slide. The law still remains that the bowlers and umpire will return any not out batter to his or her original end in the case of deliberate short runs. As I mentioned, we will inform everybody and we will report the incident to the executive of the offending side as well as the governing body responsible for the match. Okay, it is seen in very serious light, and that's why I think the ICC have introduced an extra measure of punishment against the batting side by allowing the fielding side to determine who faces the next delivery after a deliberate short run. So that's it for Law 18. Now we move on to Law 19, boundaries, which is the last law that we'll be covering for tonight. And after Law 19, we will go through some revision questions covering everything that we have covered on Monday as well as today in terms of the laws. In terms of Law 19, we're going to focus on overthrows and willful acts of fielders resulting in boundaries. Firstly, let us find out what the law says, how many runs will add up in terms of the boundary allowance, as well as the overthrow or willful act allowance. Law tells us that if the boundary results from an overthrow or from the willful act of a fielder, and we do have a video that shows us exactly what is meant by a willful act of a fielder, the runs shall be any runs for penalties awarded to either side. And you will see this is a theme throughout the laws of cricket, that no balls and wides always count if they do happen. The allowance for the boundary will count. I've never seen an overthrow that goes for 6. It can't, because if it landed in the fielder's hands without a bounce, then it would be out caught. But if it was a no ball, then it will be an interesting scenario. So overthrows are generally along the ground when they cross the boundary. So that would be a boundary allowance of 4. What is also added to that boundary allowance is the runs completed by the batters together with the run in progress if the batters had already crossed at the instant of the throw or the willful act. As mentioned, we do have a video that will show us exactly what is meant by the willful act of a fielder resulting in a boundary. But first, we're going to watch a video of probably the most famous overthrow in the history of cricket. It was the 2019 World Cup, England against New Zealand, and it was the last over of England's chase in what ended up being a tied match that went to to 1 super over for the winner to be crowned.
Hello and welcome to the Cricket Digest channel. World Cup final match saw one of the most thrilling finish ever witnessed in an ODI match. However, an overthrow in the 50th over of England innings has sparked the debate. A throw from Martin Guptill deflected after hitting Ben Stokes, who was diving to save his wicket, and the ball crossed the boundary line. Many people were confused about how an overthrow is valid after the ball touches the batsman. Point to be considered here is everyone in the field, including the batsman and the umpires, are considered as part of the play, and the fielding side has to take this into consideration. Hence, the ball getting deflected from either a batsman or an umpire will not be called a dead ball. However, if a batsman makes deliberate contact with the ball, or if he deliberately comes in the way of a throw, then the ball will be immediately called dead and the batsman will be given out, obstructing the field. But in the case of Ben Stokes, he had come in the way of throw, but he did not do it deliberately. He was running hard to save his wicket, and he did not make deliberate contact with the ball either. It looks unfair to the fielding side in this case, but one should also take into consideration that catching after the ball hits either an umpire or a batsman is valid. Hence, allowing overthrow was well within the laws of the game. But there was a mistake committed by the umpires in this incident. They awarded 6 runs, whereas only 5 runs should have been awarded. According to Cricket Law 19.8, if the boundary results from an overthrow or from the willful act of a fielder, then the runs scored shall be allowance for the boundary, which is 4 runs in this case, and the runs completed by the batsman plus the run in progress if the batsman had already crossed at the instant of the throw. Ben Stokes and Adil Rashid had completed the first run, but they had not crossed for the second run at the instant of the throw. Hence, only 1 run should have been awarded for running, and in total, 5 runs should have been awarded. Law further states that if the batsman had not crossed at the instant of the throw, then they should be sent to the end they have left. Meaning, in this case, Adil Rashid should have been sent to the striker's end, and Ben Stokes should have been sent to the non-striking end for next delivery. If this law was applied properly, then the New Zealand team would have had a good chance to win the World Cup. Do you feel any different? Do let us know in the comment section.
At the highest level with the highest stakes, the best umpires in the world did make a mistake, and they have owned up to that mistake. We need to learn from their mistake. We need to know the law, and we need to always watch the ball, even though we are trying to watch the batters making good their ground at each end. You need to get yourself into a position where you are able to see everything that you need to adjudicate on when it comes to overthrows, when it comes to runouts. So it will come with practice, it will come with experience, but do take note of where the batters are when the ball leaves the fielder's hand for the throw, because that is the point in time that decides how many runs over and above the boundary allowance will be added to the batting team's score. So, as mentioned by the narrator, should only have been 5, because when Martin Guptill threw that ball, Ben Stokes and Adil Rashid had only just turned for the second run. They had not crossed for the second run. Very difficult scenario, lots happening, throw coming in from the boundary. Very rare that a throw from the boundary goes for an overthrow, but of course it was because it hit Ben Stokes's bat. So yes, let's all learn from that particular incident, and that's why it is on the course. We've seen an overthrow. Now let us look at what a willful act by a fielder resulting in a boundary looks like. How is it treated, and how many runs are added to the batting team's score?
Started at 15:39. Calls for a single, but the Indians want the ball to go to the boundary. And it will not reach there, will it? Yes, it does. Yeah. Does it? It pushes it over. And signal boundary 284 for 9, and it'll bring up. Interesting. Yeah, will that be 5, Robin?
I think so. I think if you seem to deliberately kick the ball over, and I think that's what Steve Davis is checking now.
South Africa won't mind this. This is time being wasted. These are crucial moments. 5 signal because he's kicked over. The ends will change. Tony starts answering the field.
Let me talk you through the scenario. You'll see at the bottom of the graphic, it is written 5 penalty runs. That is not correct. It was 5 runs, but it wasn't 5 penalty runs. So the score 289 for 9 tells you that Hashim Amla, probably batting number 3 for South Africa at the time, was batting with the number 11 batter, Morne Morkel. It was the last ball of the over, and they wanted 1 run so that Hashim Amla would face the first ball of the next over. And of course, India wanted a boundary 4 so that the 2 batters would stay at their ends, and the next over would start with Morne Morkel on strike. So Virender Sehwag, noticing that the ball stopped just before the rope, he decided he would kick the ball over the rope. And I'm sure you saw that he signaled to the umpire Steve Davis, but the bowlers and umpire Steve Davis was very sharp. He had a feeling that there was some unfair play there. He got on his radio. It was confirmed by the TV umpire that the ball was stationary before the boundary rope. Virender Sehwag kicked the ball over the boundary rope. That was a willful act by the fielder. At the instant of Virender Sehwag kicking the ball over the boundary rope, the two batters would have crossed and made good their ground to complete the single and to stay at the ends that they wanted to be for the start of the next over. So, because a willful act resulted in a boundary, law tells us that the runs awarded to South Africa were 1 for the completed run and boundary 4 for the boundary allowance. So that is 5 runs. So the correct signal from Steve Davis should have been boundary 4, and then he should have turned his hand to the he should have turned the back of his hand to the scorers so that they don't think it's a bye, and that should have shown the scorers that that is 5 runs to the batting side, not 5 penalty runs, but 5 runs off the bat of Hashim Amla, because there was a willful act by Virender Sehwag that resulted in a boundary. Right, so we have learnt a few things over the course of Monday's lecture and over the course of today's lecture, but let's cycle back to the ICC boundary law changes. Remember, we had Alauddin Palika with us for lecture number 1, where he took us through the boundary changes, boundary law changes, which are being implemented by the ICC effective June for test matches and effective July for the white ball international men's matches. So now I'm sure a lot of you know about the Make the Call series that we are running on YouTube. This was an episode or a short a couple of months ago before the law change. So my question to you is, with the new ICC playing condition change, would this be out court or would this be a boundary 6? So please type into the chat box after you've seen this fielding attempt or catch attempt. Q19.1 boundary 6 or Q19.1 out court. Let's have a look at the scenario. Fielder catches the ball, realizes he's going to land outside, palms it, jumps, palms it while he's in the air, palms it once more, and then completes the catch, lands inside the field of play. So at no point did he touch the ball outside of the field of play while he was grounded outside of the field of play. Is this, with the new ICC playing conditions in effect, is this a boundary 6 or is this out court? Please type into the chat box now, 19.1 boundary 6 or 19.1 out court. Moving swiftly along, we have revision questions that are going to take us through the content of Monday's lecture first. So Abdullah presented very thoroughly to us on Monday about the changes of the times of intervals. And what we need to do is we need to remember that we can change the times of the lunch break, the times of the tea break, and even the close of play in various scenarios. So let's go through these, and unfortunately, we are not allowed to give you the answers. We need you guys to take us through the answers, and we will tell you if you are on the right track or not. Okay, because these questions are similar to what you will find in the Cricket South Africa Level 3 exam, and hence we are not allowed to give you the answers. What I will do tomorrow when I send through the recording or the link of the recording of today's lecture is I will send all of these questions, revision questions, to all of you, and you can attempt them in your own time. But we will also give you an opportunity now to go through them and talk through them, and we will advise you whether you're on the right track or whether you've got it right or whether you need to go back to the drawing boards. And do remember, especially when we go through the last hour calculations, that even though the playing conditions for test matches in International Cricket Council's playing conditions require 15 overs to be bowled in an hour, in law, the last hour requires 20 overs to be bowled in that hour. So keep that in mind for your calculations. So let's take these three questions, and I will ask for hands up for those of you who would like to give these a try. In the brackets at the end of each question is the number of marks allocated to specific questions. So if you've got a 4-mark question, you cannot just give us a one-word answer. You need to give us, it says discuss in full, the timings and the overs. So please expand as much as possible on your answers. Question 1. In a 3-day match, tea is scheduled from 1500 hours to 1520. Western Province Colts are all out at 1429 after facing 64.5 overs from the allotted 104 overs in the day's play. So, what do we have to consider here? We have to consider the fact that tea is at 3 p.m. and Western Province Colts have been dismissed. An innings has ended at 14:29. How many minutes is that before the scheduled tea break? It is 31 minutes before the scheduled tea break. What happens if an innings ends more than 30 minutes before the scheduled tea break? What happens when an innings ends 30 minutes or less before the scheduled tea break? I see a hand coming up. Jeremy Fredericks, please hold your thoughts while I go into the meeting settings and allow everybody to be able to unmute their microphones and also put on their videos if they so wish. Remember, it's for 4 marks, so you can't just tell us that they're taking tea or they're not taking tea. You need to tell us why they're taking tea or why they're not taking tea. And whenever you are given overs allotted in the day, then you need to tell the examiner as well how many overs are left in the day. So 104 allotted for the day, and this is the 65th over of the day when the 10th wicket falls. And then just for all of your information as well, the change of innings, if it does not fall within a tea break or a lunch break, you will subtract 3 overs from the day's play. Okay, that is because 20 overs in an hour is 3 minutes and over. So 3 minutes and over times 3 overs gives you 9 minutes. So that's 3 completed overs that are taken out of the day's play when you have a 10-minute change of innings. Jeremy, I've kept you on hold for long enough. Please take us through question number 1. Your thoughts, please. Jeremy, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Tim. Tom. Hi. First of all, the innings ended at 14:29. That means there's 31 minutes left before tea.
Yeah.
So what would then happen? They would the side having to bat would come out. You take the 10 minutes into consideration because it happened within. It's not within the half an hour. There was 31 minutes, not less than 30 minutes. So first of all, what will happen is that the batting side will come and bat. They will come in at 14:39 to bat for 21 minutes. Your calculation will be as follows. You take the 104 overs minus 65, which gives you 39 overs, minus the 3 minutes for the 10-minute change before tea, and you'd have 36 overs left for the day.
Minus the 3 overs, yes, not the 3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 overs, I mean, sorry, yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah.
No problem. I fully followed you there. No problem. That sounds 100% correct to me. Jeremy, you have consulted the law. Law tells us that if an innings ends more than 30 minutes before the scheduled tea break, you will not take tea. You will have to take the 10-minute change of innings, and the next side to bat will bat 10 minutes after the last wicket fell. So that would be 14:39, and you would play until the original scheduled tea time, which is 1500. And quite correct, as per law, you would deduct 3 overs for the change of innings. And also what's important here is that 64.5 overs, if it's outside of the last hour, we round it up to 65. So then we say 104 minus 65. As Jeremy told us, is 39 minus 3 for the changeover gives us 36 overs remaining for the day. And that is how you would get 4 marks for that type of question. Great stuff. Well done. Thank you, Jeremy. Next one is also related to tea. It is scheduled again from 3 p.m. until 15:20. Borland Colts declare their innings closed at 14:49 after facing 68.1 overs from the allotted 104 overs in the day's play. Discuss in full the timings and the overs remaining for the day, the procedure to follow according to law. I saw Ian Fraser's hand come up. Ian, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Hi, Tom. Thank you. Okay, because it's inside the 30 minutes before the tea break, they will take the tea break early. The schedule will start again at 15:09 because that's the amount of time difference between when they actually stopped the innings and went for tea. There will be 69 overs will have gone because it's outside the last hour, so we have to round it up. That will be taken away from the 104, which will give us a quick 35 overs play, because they will take the tea interval and the innings changeover will be taken during the tea interval. Therefore, there'll be no overs lost.
So how many overs are remaining, Ian? 104 minus 65?
35.
35 overs remaining in the day's play. 100% correct. The key there is the innings ended within 30 minutes of the tea break. So you take tea immediately. It is of the agreed duration of 20 minutes. So from 14:49 until 15:09. And because your change of innings is now incorporated into the tea break, you're not going to lose any further overs. That is why we actually move tea, so that we don't lose overs and we play more cricket. So all you do for your calculation is 104 overs to be bowled in the day minus 69 that have already been bowled. We've rounded that 68.1 up to 69 because we are outside of the last hour. So we round overs played up. 104 minus 69 is 35 overs remaining in the day's play. Perfect. Well done. Thank you, Ian. Question number 3. In a 3-day match, lunch is scheduled from 12:10 to 12:50. At 12:09, Eastern Province Colts lose their 9th wicket. Explain the procedure to follow. I'm very hungry. I want to go for lunch. Can I go? Can I whip the bells off? A wicket has just fallen. So it's within 3 minutes of the lunch break. Let us go, please. I see Ian's hand is up again. Ian, let's see if anybody else wants to give this a try. We would like to get as many other people involved as possible in these revision questions. I did see Conrad van Dijk's hand come up for the previous question. Conrad, do you want to give this particular question a go?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'll try this one. So, because the wicket fell at 12:09, they lost a wicket, the 9th wicket. So, lunch can be pushed for another 30 minutes. So, an extra maximum 30 minutes can be played. So, it gives the other side a possible opportunity to take that 10th wicket. So, lunch will only be taken then at 12:39, or when the last wicket falls, the close of innings, then lunch will only be taken.
Very good, Conrad, but not 100% correct. A lot of people get confused by the 12:09. Imagine the 9th wicket fell at 11:29, and there was a long partnership for the 10th wicket. And at lunchtime, 12:10, do we take lunch? No, because the team is 9 wickets down. So whatever time the 9th wicket falls does not matter. Lunch will be extended or delayed by 30 minutes from the scheduled lunchtime. Okay, so we're not going to play until 12:39. we're going to play until 12:40. We're going to move the lunch interval by 30 minutes. Don't get confused by when the 9th wicket fell. We move the lunch interval from the scheduled time that it's supposed to start by 30 minutes. So yes, we will play that extra 30 minutes, or we will play until the 10th wicket falls. But that 30 minutes only starts from the scheduled time of 12:10. So we will play up until 12:40, or until the 10th wicket falls, or the players have reason to leave the field. Maybe it starts raining, then we would also take lunch immediately. Okay, Conrad, I hope you don't get caught out by that 12:09 again. Perfect. So that was from Monday's lecture. Also on Monday's lecture, Abdullah took us through the positioning of an umpire. And remember, he spoke about how far the bowler's end umpire needs to stand behind the stumps at the bowler's end. Is it 1.5 meters? Is it 2.5 meters? Is it 5 meters? Is it 10 meters? Law doesn't give us a specific distance whereby we need to stand the distance behind the bowler's end stumps. Law just tells us that we need to be comfortable and we need to be in a position that we are able to make the best possible decisions, and we should not be in the way of the bowler's run-up, and we should not be a distraction to the striker. So on the right of the screen, we have a still frame of a video that I'm going to play you. The bowler is Tino Best and the umpire is Gregory Braithwaite. This was a CPL, Caribbean Premier League match from a few years ago, 2017, 18, 19, somewhere there. And you will notice that Tino Best bowls from behind the bowler's end umpire. Let's have a look, see, and then we'll discuss it afterwards.
He has bowled that from so far behind the umpire. That is the furthest I've ever seen a delivery served up from.
So now, if you are the bowler's end umpire and this happens to you, what are you going to do? Are you going to do anything? Does anybody want to take us through their actions or non-actions? Can your strikers and umpire help you in any way to determine that it was a fair delivery? Maybe the bowler threw the ball from behind the bowler's end umpire. We don't have eyes behind our back. How can we judge? So what do we do if a bowler bowls from behind the bowler's end umpire? Would anybody like to hazard a guess? Or should I just take you through the presentation? Jeremy, you've got your hand up. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Yeah. First of all, if you're bowling from behind the umpire, as you said, the square leg umpire will be able to see if it's a no ball or not no ball, because you can't see you in the standing position. But from where he's bowled, and it's a legal bowling action, it will be a fair delivery because he's not, his side foot is not across the crease, or his front foot is not crossing the popping crease in front. So it would be a fair delivery unless the action has changed. He throws the ball, or it will be the square leg's prerogative then to signal to his colleague that it's not a fair delivery and say no ball.
Okay, 2 good points there, Jeremy. Thanks for your input. One, the strikers and umpire can verify that the arm was straight. Great. And the bowler's end umpire can verify that the front foot wasn't over the popping crease, but can we verify that the back foot landed inside of the return crease? We don't have eyes behind our back. Vikram, you've got your hand up. Please unmute your microphone. What would you do in this scenario?
Yeah, I think nowadays, I think in international games there is the auto no ball where the third umpire can judge that. But I think because the bowlers and umpire cannot judge that, I think the guideline is that the bowlers and umpire should inform the bowler to not do that, and also first of all call it a dead ball. Ask the bowlers and umpire, ask the bowler to not do that, and um, inform the captain if the bowler keeps doing that for time wasting.
100% Vikram. You have hit the nail on the head. This is not in the law book, but because of this particular incident, it happened a couple of months before a World Cup. And so the beginning of every World Cup, the umpires for that particular tournament will sit together with the ICC umpire coach or coaches who are involved in the World Cup. They'll sit together with the match referee and they will have a match officials conference. And at that match officials conference before, I think it was before the 2019 World Cup, I stand to be corrected, maybe it was earlier than that. But the ruling that they came up with as a group, which has been taken forward by the ICC since then as application for when a bowler bowls from behind the bowler's end umpire, is
That from so far, that's the furthest up.
the ruling is that a bowler cannot bowl from behind the umpire, the bowler's end umpire. Why? Because the bowler's end umpire is unable to verify the back foot landing. Because we can't verify the back foot landing, we cannot call and signal no ball. So the call that has been agreed on is to call and signal dead ball. Well done, Vikram. The ball needs to be rebowled, and anything that happened in that delivery will not count. Okay, so even though the ball might have been hit for 4, we will not signal boundary 4. We will call and signal dead ball, return the batters to their original end. And yes, we can, with the bowler, decide whether we're going to stand a little bit back if he wants to bowl from behind the popping crease. It's a variation that Dwayne Bravo started many years ago, just to sort of play with the length of his delivery, and the ball reaches the striker a lot later than expected. So we do allow some leeway in terms of how far we can stand to accommodate the bowler's request. However, we need to accommodate his or her request within reason. We cannot stand, like Abdullah said, 10 meters behind the stumps. Even 5 meters behind the stumps is quite far. I think the maximum you should go from behind the stumps is about 4 meters. Probably 3.5 is the accepted, the general norm, right? So if the bowler does continue to bowl from behind the bowler's end umpire, then the bowler's end umpire, after calling and signaling dead ball each time, should warn the bowler for wasting time. And also, of course, inform the captain that this is not just a warning for the bowler, but a team warning. And eventually we'll get to it in Law 41, after a first and final team warning. If there is another instance of time wasting by anyone in the fielding side, then 5 penalty runs to the batting side will be awarded. So there's no value for a bowler to bowl from behind the bowler's end umpire. Well done, Vikram, and thanks for your input as well, Jeremy. Right, so let's go to some more quiz questions or revision questions related to today's content. Question 5 is about an overthrow and how many runs are awarded to the batting side in this scenario. The striker hits the ball to mid-wicket and attempts a run. At the instant of the mid-wicket fielder's throw for the run out at the bowler's end, the batters are level. They have not crossed. Okay, not is in bold. Very important to note in the question. So a bit of the answer is already in the question. The ball misses the stumps and goes over the boundary at deep extra cover as the batters turn for their third run. That is a piece of information. Whether you need that information or not is up to you to decide. Discuss and explain the procedure to follow. Maybe we should be more specific. How many runs to be awarded and which batter will face the next delivery? It's still the same over. I see Ian's hand is up. I would love to get some input from somebody new this evening. So I'll give you all a few more seconds to read through that scenario and think it through. Try and remember the World Cup scenario. What happened? When is the important moment, and where should the batters be in that moment to get the runs for the running? And of course, add to the boundary allowance. Anybody else want to give it a try? If not, it looks like Ian, it's you again. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Okay, Dom, thank you. The amount of runs scored will be 4 because the batsman, at the time the ball was released by the fielder, had not crossed, even though that was in an attempt of their first run. So every other run consequent to that is immaterial. It is when the fielder threw the ball and the fact that they had not crossed and then the ball went over the boundary. So it's 4 runs only, and the batsman that was the striker at the time will be returned to the striking end.
Perfect. The instant of the throw, that is when we need to judge where the batters were. Had they crossed? In this scenario, they were level, and it says in bold, they have not crossed. So you're quite right. No runs will be awarded for running. Only the allowance for the boundary will be awarded to the batting side. And because when a boundary is scored without any extra runs for running, then the original striker will face the next delivery. Then that is the case in this scenario. The original striker who has just scored 4 runs will still be on strike for the next delivery. Well done again, Ian. 3 marks to you, 100%. There is no question 6. Question 6, you will see tomorrow when I send you these questions on email, is the deliberate short run by the Australian Tim David in that Big Bash League match. So I'm giving you the answer now. That was clearly a case of deliberate short running. Tim David was trying to get back to the strikers end to face the last delivery of the 20th over in a T20 match. He was batting with a number 8 batter because 6 wickets were down. The number 8 batter hadn't faced a delivery, so Tim David, being the finisher that he's known as, wanted to face as much of that last over as possible to maximize scoring. What he actually ended up doing was costing his side 5 penalty runs. So 5 penalty runs were awarded to the fielding side, and all runs to the batting side were disallowed. Tim David did get back to the striker's end, which was his intent. But if he had done this in July 2025 and the BBL had adopted ICC's playing conditions, the fielding side would have had the opportunity to decide who faces the next delivery. And I can tell you now, they would have put the number 8 to face that last delivery of that 20th over. So that's how that law has evolved. Well, the playing condition has evolved for now. The law will be changed or considered to be changed in October 2026. I'm not sure if that is one of the playing conditions that is going to be written into law. We will unpack the rest of those playing conditions and also find out from Alauddin Palika if they're going to be written into law or not. Question number 7. Due to a slow over rate during the final day, the last hour of a 3-day match starts at 16:42. After the completion of 3.5 overs, it starts to rain and play is suspended at 16:54. Play gets underway again at 17:07 after numerous ground inspections by both umpires show with calculations how many overs still need to be bowled in the last hour. Okay, so Abdullah took us through a few examples earlier about calculating how many overs remain in the last hour when there is an interruption. This is the easiest of your last hour calculations when there's only one interruption in the last hour. And there are certain steps that need to be taken for the calculation. And if you go through those steps systematically, you should come out with the correct amount of overs remaining. Jeremy Fredericks, I see your hand went up and then it went immediately back down. You've unmuted your microphone. That tells me you are ready to answer this question for us.
Yeah. Well, I thought, well, I put it down. I thought maybe someone else. But anyway, yeah, I do tempt you first of all. The 20 overs started at 16:42. 3.5 overs were bowled. So you rounded off to 4 overs.
So hang on. It's 3 overs and 5 balls.
Yeah,
bowled.
have been bowled. Yeah. 3 overs and 5 balls. Okay, so 30 minutes was lost because you went underway at 17:07. So what you need to do is then you got to take the 20 overs because a minimum of 20 overs must be bowled. So because 3.5 overs have been completed, you deduct 4 overs, which leaves you left with 16 overs for the day. 13 minutes was lost. So for every, so you divide it by 3 because it's 3 minutes and over. So that gives you another 4 overs. So it's 16 minus 4 gives you 12 overs remaining.
Okay, close, very close, Jeremy, but no cigar yet.
No?
I'll tell you why. When there's an interruption, when we come back, do we complete that over or do we start a new over immediately?
No, once your deduction, you tell them how many overs are remaining. And you start a new over.
You don't start a new over, Jeremy. You've been watching cricket for longer than I have. You know when you come back after an interruption, you complete that over, isn't it?
Yeah, you do.
Okay. So when there is a change of innings, then you round up or round down the over.
Okay. All right.
But when there is an interruption, when there's rain, you do not round up or round down that over. You still need to complete that over. Where your rounding down comes in this scenario is we say that first step we need to do is we need to calculate how much time was lost. So 1654 until 1707 is 6 minutes plus 7 minutes is 13 minutes. So 13 divided by 3 minutes and over is 4.33333. So now this is where we need to round up or round down. So now what are we calculating here? We're calculating how many overs we are losing. So we don't want to lose too many overs. So to maximize play, we are going to ignore the fraction. So we are going to round 4.333 recurring down to 4 overs lost. So even if we had got 4.666 or 4.999, we would round it down to 4 overs lost because we are only looking to lose an over for every complete 3 minutes lost. So 3 plus another 3 is 6, plus another 3 is 9, plus another 3 is 12. There are your 4 complete 3 minutes lost. So that's 4 overs lost. So that's where the rounding comes in. So all we need to do is we need to say, okay, so we had 20 overs to start. We have bowled 3.5 overs. And we have lost 4 overs. So 20 minus 3.5 minus 4 gives us, it's easier if we go 20 minus 4 first, 16, and then minus 3.5, which is bold. But your calculator is going to confuse you here because it's going to give you a 0.5 answer. We need 1 ball left. So it's 12 overs and 1 ball remaining. Does that make sense, Jeremy?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Sorry. Yeah. I just took the overs to the, which I shouldn't have done. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. When there's an interruption, you don't round down or up the overs.
Okay.
The only place where you round down or up in this scenario is the overs lost. When you take your time divided by 3 minutes per over, you ignore that fraction. So you always round down so that you lose as few overs as possible. So correct answer to question 7 is 12.1. Abdullah, I'm doing this out of my head without a memorandum in front of me. Please confirm that I am teaching the guys the right calculations.
Yes, you are, Tom. Spot on.
Great stuff. Thank you. Question number 8. On the last day of a 4-day match at Newlands, the last hour starts at 16:30. 3 hours and 2 balls into the last hour, Western Province are bowled out at 16:44. Show with calculations how many overs still need to be bowled in the last hour. So here we have a change of innings. And so here we are going to round or round down. I'm sure Nomula will tell us which one. And we need 2 calculations. So for 5 marks, Nomula, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Yes, it is a case of interval between innings in the last hour. So we need to do two types of calculations to determine the overs remaining for the remaining time in the last hour. One is on the basis of overs remaining. So for that, we need to calculate the number of overs still remaining in the last hour. That would be a 16.4 because we need to bowl 20 overs and have bowled only 3.2. So overs remaining are 16.4. And since it is not a whole number, we need to round off to the next whole number. That would be 17. And we need to deduct 3 overs for the interval. So as per overs remaining calculation, the number of overs remaining would be 14. And now we need to do our calculation on the basis of time remaining. So only 14 minutes of play has gone in the last hour. That would be 46 minutes left. We need to deduct 10 minutes for the interval. So that would be 36 minutes of playing time remaining. Now we need to calculate 1 over for every complete 3 minutes of time remaining. So 36 divided by 3 would be 12 hours of time remaining. The greater of 14 and 12 is of course 14. So the number of overs for the team that is going to bat would be 14.
Excellent, 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 Nomula. If I was the marker for you for that question, I would give you 6 marks, not just 5, because that was
thanks, Tom. Thank you.
that was expertly answered. Abdullah, I'm sure you were following. Please confirm that those calculations were correct.
7 marks, Tom, not 6.
Thanks, Abdullah.
No. Yeah, Nomula, we wish that we could mark your exam papers for you, for all of you, so that we could be generous with our marks. But yes, very well done, very thorough. You rounded. A lot of people get that rounding up or rounding down incorrect. So what you did was you said 20 minus 3.2 balls is 16.4 balls remaining. We want more cricket, so we round that 16.4 up to 17. And why we round that is because it is a change of innings. We don't round up or down when there is a interruption. We round up when there is a change of innings. And of course, we need 2 calculations, a overs-based calculation and then a time-based calculation. And the greater of the 2 answers is the answer that we go with for the overs remaining in the day's play or in the last hour. Excellent. Very well done. Last revision question for today is question number 9. It is day 1 of a 5-day test match between South Africa and the West Indies. You are at the bowler's end and you call play at 10 a.m. But as Kagiso Rabada is running in to bowl the first ball of the match, it starts to rain. You stop Rabada from bowling the first ball and ask the ground staff to come and put on the covers. So no ball, not a single delivery is bowled on day 1. Play starts on time on day 2. The West Indies are dismissed for 367 runs. What would the West Indies need to restrict South Africa in order to enforce the follow-on? Give a reason for your answer. Remember, this is a 5-day test match. I've got 3 hands up. I'm going to give an opportunity to Bradley Crotts, who has not answered a question yet today. Bradley, please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. I'm gonna have a stab at this one. At least try. So day 105. It looks like that we've lost one day. So we're reducing the threshold from 200 to the follow-on from 200 to 150. So it states here on day 2, the West Indies was missed for 367. I would then deduct the 367 from 150, which will then give me 217, I think, if my calculation is correct. Yeah, that would be my reason, because of the one day that we lost.
Interesting, Bradley.
It
I
could be
see.
200 also. It could be because he's saying there. There's another scenario, 167, because he said he was bowling, but now, yeah, you can rectify me there.
Okay, there's still a few hands up. We haven't heard from Mike Williams today. Mike from Florida, please unmute your microphone and you give us your take on this scenario, please.
Yes, even though a ball wasn't bowled, it's still a 5-day match. Okay. Play was called, run up was started.
Play was called.
Play was called. So they would need to since play was called, it's a 5-day match, 200 runs are still the follow on. They would need to hold your beloved South Africa World Test Champions to 167.
100% correct, Mike. The trick there in the question, but again, there's a little bit of the answer in the question, is that you at the bowler's end call play at 10 a.m. As soon as either umpire calls play on day 1, then play has deemed to have taken place. Therefore, Bradley, your second guess was correct, that the follow-on target remains 200. It remains a 5-day test match. And so the West Indies would need to restrict South Africa to 167 runs or less to be able to enforce the follow-on. 367 minus 200, the lead can be 200 or more to be able to enforce the follow-on. Vikram, you've got your hand up. Please unmute your microphone. The floor is yours.
Yeah, just a quick question. So is it the call of play, or is it Rabada running in to bowl the first ball? Because that is when it's considered as the over has started, right? So which is the call that determines if play has happened on day 1?
You're quite right, Vikram. An over starts when the bowler starts his or her run-up, but we're not concerned about an over starting. We're concerned about the first session of we're concerned about the day starting, and the day is started by the bowler's end umpire calling play.
Got it.
Okay. Happy. Thank you so much to all of you for your participation in the questions. They are not easy to answer on the fly, as you have all done, just reading them and immediately giving your thoughts. And most of you were correct most of the time. So very well done. Sounds like you have either been reading up before the lecture or listening very closely to our explanations. So thank you for your attention and attendance. I'm now going to stop sharing and go into the chat box to see who has been saying what. And hopefully we can answer any questions that have come up during this session. Right, so quiz question 18 was the Tim David scenario, batting side 0, fielding side 5 penalty runs. Most of you seem to have got that correct. Well done. And Vikram answered the question about that fielder. According to the old rules, return any not out batter to his or her original end. What happens in case of a run out? Does the new batter come to the end the batter got dismissed, or will the new batter go to the original end of the batter that got dismissed? Abdullah, you want to take that one? So this is if there was a deliberate short run and one of the batters got run out, where will the new batter come in?
Okay, Tom, the playing condition looks as follows. So they've added this new section right at the end of the playing condition. So if we go the steps that we need to follow, disallow all runs, return any not out batter back to their original ends. So in this case, the not out batter needs to go back to the end that UC started. Then we'll go penalty runs, no ball wide to apply, and then after that, now it comes. Now the new batter's coming in. Now the captain of the fielding side has the opportunity to choose which end which batter they want to face the next ball. So if they want the new batter to face the next ball, then obviously the new batter will go to the striker's end. If the fielding captain wants the not out batter to face, the not out batter then needs to go to the striker's end. So same process, Tom, just at the end. They give the fielding captain the option to choose. Over.
Great stuff. Vikram, I see you've got your hand up. Abdullah answered the old law and also gave you the new ICC playing condition interpretation. Do you want to add to that or ask a further question?
So it wasn't very clear to me. So the old law, according to the old law, the not out batter goes to their original end. So the new batter comes to the other end. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Yes. So if the non-striker was out, then the new batter would be the non-striker. If the striker was out, then the new batter would be on strike. That's according to the law as it's currently written, without the new ICC playing condition.
Okay.
Happy?
Yep.
Great stuff. Right, then I showed you all the catch or the attempted juggle over the boundary. Quite incredibly, a month ago, that would have been a out court. But as per the new ICC playing condition for boundary catches that we went through with Alauddin Palika last week, Monday, that is now a boundary 6. Why is it a boundary 6? Because you are allowed to tap the ball while you're in the air outside the field of play. But when you tap the ball while you're in the air from outside the field of play, then you need to land back into the field of play immediately after tapping the ball and then complete the catch, or complete the catch and then land immediately back. Whereas we saw the young gentleman tapping the ball outside the field of play and landing back outside the field of play, making quite a few steps outside the field of play. That is no longer allowed according to the new ICC boundary court law. Mike, you had your hand up fleetingly. Did you want to ask a question related to that boundary catch or now boundary 6?
No, I was just going to say that's definitely the definition of the bunny hop that they're talking about now.
Correct, correct. Right. Everybody got boundary 6 there. Well done. NSE says, thanks, Tom and Abdullah, for the lecture. I need to attend some pressing issues at the moment. Enjoy the rest of the lecture. And Nessie's also wishing me well for my tournament in Malawi. Earlier today, I landed in beautiful Blantyre, Malawi. There's a quadrangular international series between Malawi, Bahrain, Germany, and Tanzania that starts on Saturday. And I am going to be the match referee for the tournament. So first time as a match referee for me. Looking forward to it. And I'm sure we'll have some interesting incidents to report back on Monday. So stay tuned, and I'll take you through anything to report after the weekend's play. Thank you very much for all the applause and acknowledgement. Right. I think there are a few more answers which are looking correct. Well done. Zaid Abbas asks, does the striker get the runs for an overthrow and for the willful act of a fielder resulting in a boundary? Yes, Zahid. Bonus runs for a striker. Who, apart from the fact that that throw hit Ben Stokes's bat when he dove to make good his ground at the non-striker's end, and the ball ran over the boundary, because it was Ben Stokes who played the ball to Martin Guptill at the boundary. The striker will always be awarded the overthrows if he or she had hit the ball. If the overthrows result from a bye, then it wouldn't obviously be awarded to the striker. With the case of a willful act by a fielder, those 5 runs were not penalty runs. They were all awarded to Hashim Amla. So the answer to your question is yes, the striker does get the running runs as well as the boundary allowance for overthrows and willful acts that result in boundaries. Right. Jeremy, I do have to come back to a job in South Africa. Our season starts, as you know, in mid-September. I will be back long before that. A lot of training to be done to our local umpires about these new playing conditions, which I'm sure a few of them we will adopt into club cricket as well as provincial cricket playing conditions. So a lot to come back to in South Africa. But for now, I'm escaping the cold of Cape Town and enjoying the pleasant weather in Malawi. I see no further questions or comments in the chat box. I see no hands up in the meeting room. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you all for your attendance and interaction today. I will be sending the questions by email to everyone that we went through. and you will have the opportunity to send us your answers on email, and we will let you know if you've got them right or if you need guidance to improve your answers for exam purposes. Nomula, you've got your hand up. Please unmute your microphone, and the floor is yours. Nomula, please unmute. Or maybe Nomula was trying to wave good night and instead he put his hand up. Hand is now down. Thank you very much, Nomula. Thank you very much to everyone again. We will reconvene on Monday, same time, same place, same meeting link. Have a great weekend. Until then, thank you and goodbye.
Cheers, Tom. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Ian.
Yes,
Cheers, everybody.
yeah, cheers. Bye, everyone. Bye, everyone.
I remember the Tanzania trips, the trip you guys took, because I was reviewing those lectures recently as well, and yeah, I remember Abdullah didn't want to come home. You guys had a great time. That's awesome.
Indeed, we did indeed. Yeah, I'll try to take some footage, and if there's any training that happens, I'll post it on YouTube as well, Mike.
Yeah, congratulations to you, mate.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
Awesome. Cheers, everybody. Have a good one.